No, just kidding. Honestly, even with this challenge, if you didn't do it this week, if you do it this next week, and even I was talking with Emma today, I was like, you don't have to write a song. Like, you don't have to do these things. Like, Emma could have just composed chords on her guitar or something, or a drum beat or something that expresses it. Do I have any brave souls willing to share in the big group? Theirs. Sydney's like, I'll do it, but not first. Okay, so I got my two Sydneys are gonna do it. Is it questions or is it like, was this your song? Okay, your song is your questions. Okay, go for it.
So I said, what will heaven be like? How can I grow my faith here on earth? What can I do to help others grow? What are ways that people hear God? And then my last question got it right. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Mine is a little bit corny, and it's a little bit more like poem-like.
It's you.
Okay. Okay. I have a death grip on the steering wheel, both hands. I push the gas, but I never move. I steer, I don't turn. I turn, I go straight. I brake, and I only go faster. My life started when I stopped driving. Jesus was at the wheel now. Pushing the pedals, using the turn signals, the gear shift, he's got this. When we crash because I mess up, because I get scared, Jesus wraps himself around me, breaking my fall, protecting me from the shattered glass. Jesus guides me when everyone is honking, and he keeps me sane during the rush hour traffic. Jesus takes the wheel is more than a country song. It's an invitation to let go and let God. It's an invitation to get a final destination much better than I could have ever planned for myself.
I know. Come on, Caitlin, right? Caitlin? Thank you. Thank you. There will be time in your small groups, hopefully, that you guys can go over that too. Zach also brought candy for those who did participate. Yes. So speaking of questions, I want to give you the game plan for the next 2 weeks. Zach is going to put up our Google free number. I want you to just write it down. It's the same one from the Path Retreat. Over the next week or week and a half, if you have questions that you want answered, text them to that. Pastor Mo and I will then see the questions. We will kind of, some might be similar, so we might say, all right, this seems to be worded this way, let's take this one. And then on the 16th, I believe that's the Tuesday, or is it the 16th, what we're gonna do is we're gonna sit in a huge circle. We're gonna put up the questions on a thing and we're gonna tackle them together. Pastor Mo may be here, she's trying to check her schedule. So Pastor Mo and I will be coming from like a biblical standpoint of maybe here's some verses. But I also think this is a great chance for you guys to help other students. So you may not know a ton of theology, but if a question like, how do I know God is real? I'm sure some of you can explain how you believe God is real, and that can help others around the circle. So that's the plan. We're going to tackle questions together in a group setting. And the Google number, or even if you want to text me straight a question, do that too. But if you don't want anyone to know who it is, that's the number to send questions to. We'll send it out in a text too. But how many of you have ever read Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, Not Good, Very Bad Day? Right, sure. So basically this kid is having a rough day and everything is going wrong for him. And he just wants to move to Australia. And my favorite part is this. He says, there were lima beans for dinner. I hate limas. There was kissing on TV. I hate kissing. And then it ends with him basically saying, it has been a terrible, horrible, not good, very bad day. And his mom says, there are days like that, even in Australia. I think we can all agree that life can be disappointing. It can be frustrating, especially when we don't get answers to things. So we're going to play Never Have I Ever. We're going to do it differently. And it's not your typical version, so don't worry about that. You're going to stand up if you have ever this. Never have I ever experienced disappointment. Okay. And if at any point you haven't done this, you can sit down. But then if another one comes up, just stand up. Never have I ever experienced things going badly. Been rejected. Lost something valuable or precious to you. Lost out to someone else. Experienced sadness. Or you've always had your prayers answered the way you wanted. Okay. So clearly, everyone has experienced disappointment, rejection, unanswered prayers at some point in life. I think most of us have learned just because someone believes in God, it doesn't mean that life is going to just be peachy for us. You know, there's a verse in the Bible that we're going to look at in a bit, and it tells us that everything God works for our good. But some people interpret that scripture meaning if I follow Jesus, everything else is going to be great. It's going to be all right. But all of us know from our own experience that's not true. Because even when we follow Jesus, we don't get everything we want. We still get hurt. Bad things still happen to us or people we care about. Who's really hoped for something or that something would happen and it didn't? Okay, anyone willing to share? It could be goofy, doesn't need to be deep. Emma.
Okay, so around last year this time, I texted him on our mission trip, not the mission trip, the package, and he goes, yeah, and then an hour later, my dad comes and tells me we're not doing the package, and I was very disappointed.
Yep. Anyone? Yes, Cindy. Prom. Okay. Anyone else? Right? Yeah. So what about with God? Have you ever asked God to do something, but God didn't do it? Yes? How did you feel? Confused. Others? Yeah. Upset. Betrayed. All real emotions that most of us have probably felt at times. So we're going to take a look at a man whose life was pretty much an extended version of Alexander's terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. Anyone guess who we're going to look at today in the Bible? Job. Yes. So did you grab Bibles yet? Remember when I was like, hey, grab Bibles? Grab Bibles, and we're going to turn to Job chapter 1. And who would like to read for me the verses? Oh, yeah, she's not reading that. Yeah. Job 1, verses 1 through 5. Sydney A., will you read the verses for us? Yeah. Sydney is going to. So Job chapter 1, verses 1 through 5. We're going to read this, and then I'm going to kind of summarize.
What is it?
Job chapter 1, verses 1 through 5. Anyone got the page number? 554.
Sorry, guys, I'm getting there.
Yeah, I'm
so sorry.
Job 1, verses 1 through 5. I love the way this starts out. It's like,
Are you going to hold it? Should I hold
it's like a nursery rhyme starting out.
There once was a man named Job who lived in the land of Uz. He was blameless, a man of complete integrity. He feared God and stayed away from evil. He had 7 sons and 3 daughters. He owned 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 teams of oxen, and 500 female donkeys. He also had many servants. He was, in fact, the richest person in that entire area. Job's son would take turns preparing feasts in their homes, and they would also invite their 3 sisters to celebrate with them. When these celebrations ended, sometimes after several days, Job would purify his children. He would get up early in the morning and offer burnt offering for each of them. For Job said to himself, "Perhaps my children have sinned and have cursed God in their hearts." This was Job's regular practice.
So what does the scripture tell us about Job? Like, what kind of person is he? Easygoing, faithful. Any other observations of Job in this? Yes. He's very rich. It's important to know. Thank you. And he's a family man. So then, after this, things go really downhill. Satan basically asks God if he can mess with Job's life. Because surely Job is not going to turn on God, is what God is saying. God's like, okay. So basically, in the course of one day, Job receives like message after message, hearing his livestock, his servants, his 10 children are all dead. Like they get smashed, like natural disasters happen. And what Job does is he tears his clothes and he shaves his head and he mourns, but he still blesses God in his prayers. After everything that he experienced, Job cried out to God and asked, why is this happening? See, he did his best to follow God, and he couldn't understand why God would allow him to suffer. And so Job had these 3 friends who tried to comfort him through all his pain. But after sitting with Job for a week, they decided they had answers for Job of why this is happening. And in reality, their answers were really bad. They were hurtful. This is what they told Job. This is your fault. Bad things don't happen to innocent people. You must be guilty of something. Your kids deserved it too. God has a plan. You just have to wait and see what it is. See, here's the thing. When you're grieving deep things, that's not a good line. I don't care how you are in your faith. Be thankful. God must be disciplining you for something. It could get worse. This is what his friends tell him. My guess is some of us have heard those things, or some of them, and maybe even we were the ones saying them to people, not knowing what we were actually saying. Those words, though, were actually more hurtful than helpful to Job. These friends go on lecturing him for a very long time. And then at the end of it, Job's like, everything you just said was hurtful, and you're wrong. Job says, I haven't sinned against God. But even if he had, nothing I would have done would have deserved this suffering. Job cries out in pain, asking God to just end his suffering already because it's just becoming too much for him. He demands that God explains himself. And finally, God responds, right? God appears, but not in the way Job was looking for. And so God responds, and after all that, God doesn't even answer Job's question. He wanted to know why so many bad things were happening to him, and God answered, but not the way Job expected. God said this, I am the creator of everything. I'm bigger, greater, more powerful, and kinder than you ever could imagine. You are so small compared to me. Job did not get the answers he was looking for. But he did get an encounter with the creator of the universe. And the thing was, that was enough for Job. And that can be a frustrating Bible story for us, right? I've been frustrated with that from time to time, right? But the reason is because when horrible things happen, I still want God to explain to me why they're happening. Or if I have questions, I still want to know the answer to those questions. Or even if I have doubts and like deep personal insecurities, I want to know why God created me this way. Why do I have these insecurities? It's hard to have faith when you can't understand or you can't explain things. And that's the point of Job's story. Last week we talked about the fact that we all have questions and we're not alone in that. You know, even Jesus had questions on the cross. One thing we can do to be mindful of how we react to others, like that's something we need to pay attention. We need to be sensitive that people go through difficult situations. You know, we need to be kind to each other. We can't act like Job's friends. That's something we can control. And at the end of Job's story here, God restores Job's life by giving him double of everything he had before. That doesn't take away from the pain and suffering Job had, but God blessed him. Now we're going to turn to Romans 8:28. Romans is in the New Testament, back of the book. Anyone got a page number? Romans 8:28. 1235. And let's see. Ryan, will you read that for us? He's going to bring the mic.
And we know that God causes everything to work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose for them.
Thanks. This verse doesn't mean that our lives will eventually have a happy ending like a sitcom or some Disney movie. When we experience pain or heartache or we have questions and we have doubts and we don't get those answered, here's the thing: God can still redeem what we suffered or lost or the doubts that we have. Redeem is a big church word, right? But I want to know what you think redeem means. Anyone? To redeem something. What do you think it is? Eli? Huh? Prove something. To buy back. Forgiveness. Yeah. To be made new. Sydney? Freedom. To redeem something means to reclaim, to repurpose, to restore, regain it, all those answers. Like Job, sometimes we lose a lot, but redemption means that we don't have to end it there. So I was thinking about this, and I don't feel I need to share a story where someone is just stuck in the questions and there's no resolution to the suffering or to just doubts or anything. Because we've all had those times of ourselves. We all understand that. Jenna's going to come up and share how God actually did some redeeming in her life.
Can you hear me? Okay. Hi, my name is Jenna. I wanted to share a big part of my life with you guys. Oh. I'll try. Have you guys ever gotten an injury or a circumstance that prevented you from doing something you love, like playing sports? I'm guessing that led you guys to ask the big question, why me? You probably asked God that question millions of times, and you always ended up not getting an answer each time you asked him the question. All that questioning led you to doubt the plan God has for you. Right from birth, I had been taken away from my mom, and the doctors finally told her that I was born with a couple of health problems. I was cast at only 2 hours old. I was diagnosed with clubfoot and hip dysplasia. Clubfoot is when you are born with your foot inwards, and hip dysplasia is when your hips are uneven. November 12th, 2020 marks the day I went through 13 surgeries. During my journey, I wasn't close with God, and I would barely ever go to church on Sundays. I remember every night in 6th grade, I would pray about my health problems and ask God these questions. Why me? And of all people, it had to be me. I continued to pray, but I never got an answer to my questions, so that led me to start questioning God if he was actually real, and I started doubting that he actually had a plan for me, because I thought, how would these health conditions help the plan God has for me? At that point, my relationship with God only consisted of having doubts about him because I didn't think he would actually have a plan for me due to my health conditions getting in the way and questions being asked over and over again, but never getting an answer. And so I just decided that I could not do it anymore. And so my relationship with God started going downhill, and it ended up where I just didn't want to talk to God anymore or have a relationship with him because I thought he wasn't able to help me because he was the one who put me in this situation. When I was in 8th grade, my whole perspective on life and God had changed because I had slowly started having a special and close relationship with him due to being in Path. One Wednesday night during my 6th grade year, my mom told me this: we're going to Path. I didn't want to go, but she wanted me to, so I went. And I kept going to Path since that night. But I wanted to keep going every Wednesday night by 8th grade because I loved Path. Wednesday nights were my favorite during my 8th grade year because I got to go to Path, and I was always that quiet girl who loved learning about God and how he can change people's lives for the better. Path helped me in numerous of ways. A couple of ways it has helped me is by teaching me that you don't go through things for no reason. There is a reason behind everything that happens in your life. And God would never put you through something he didn't think you could go through. And all of those bad things that happen in your life does help the plan God has for you. At the end of my 8th grade year, I started going to church every Sunday, learning how to put my faith in God, and learning to trust the path God has put me on, even when it looked pretty dark and not worth it. It was hard trusting something that was not physically there on a daily basis, which is faith. These past 13 surgeries on my foot and hips were not a good thing, and people would always feel bad for me that I went through all of those surgeries. But what I would tell them is I never looked at all of those surgeries as a bad thing. They helped me be the person I am today, and they helped me to appreciate everything in life even more. During my fight with these health problems, I got diagnosed with another health problem called scoliosis in May of 2017. Scoliosis is when you have a curve in your spine, and some people may not show how painful it is, but let me tell you, having to live with this pain every day is not fun or easy, but it has actually helped me in a couple of different ways. Clubfoot, hip dysplasia, and scoliosis have impacted my life every day in bad ways and even good ways. These 3 things helped me to appreciate the little things in life, and they have also helped me to be thankful because I know other kids have it much worse than I do. And I always tell myself I'm thankful that I'm able to walk, that I have my arms and legs to help in different activities I do every day. And lastly, they have helped me to look for the good and bad situations. After my 13th surgery, I slowly felt God coming back into my life. God allowed me to walk freely instead of being limited like I used to be. God has also given me the gift of sharing my story with other people. I put all of my health problems into God's hands, and I let him do his job. In the beginning of this journey, I had no clue where I would end up, and I never thought I would be able to continue this fight. But where I am today is because of God. He has given me so much strength, and I just followed the path he put me on because I had faith this journey would be so eye-opening and amazing for me at the end, even if it didn't look too good. God does work in mysterious ways in your life, even if you do not feel it. God does throw you some pretty big curveballs, but what I can tell you is you have to trust that because you have to go through a few thunderstorms to finally see the sunshine. And that is what happened to me. What I'm trying to tell you today is put everything in God's hands and let him guide you through life because his plan is so worth it for you in the end, but it won't just take a week. It takes time.
A story like Jenna's is encouraging to us, but there are times where we may not have growth in every situation. There may be times where we don't get answers or we can't avoid the pain. We may not be able to fix things. We may not be able to understand why something ever happened. But here's things we can know. God promises to redeem our stories so we can know him better, so we can help others and make the world a better place, And so we can become more like Jesus every day. When you find yourself struggling or wrestling with questions or doubts, I hope that you learn to trust in knowing that God made you even better and more important than understanding and knowing the whys of life. We may not know how everything is going to work out, or even if it is going to work out. But even if we don't know the answers to every question, we can still have the faith in our Redeemer. Redeemed. To reclaim, repurpose, restore. That's what Christ does for us and what he does in our lives. We're going to split into small groups, and if you could move to your small groups now, like in the room. So like Zach and Megan just go that way. Who is it? Gay, go right in the middle, and then Brenda kind of head to the back. So, and if you weren't here, then I'm gonna. Okay, if you weren't here,